but I'm not sure that I would have picked the name Split Ends if I was opening a hair salon. But what's interesting from a data perspective is that once the fire was out, the owner of the hairstylist there on the left asked us to go in and retrieve the safe and the computer. Okay? She didn't care about anything else. The safe is easy to understand, but her interest in the computer shows how important data is today, even to someone who cuts hair. She wasn't interested in her tools or in the hands-on aspect of her business. The data was more important. By the way, if she had used Box and had her data in the cloud, she wouldn't have had that problem. But how is healthcare different from other industries? Going back to my first job, in finance. The data there revolves around money. No surprise there. The data is used either to make money by analyzing your use patterns to try to sell you something similar to what you have historically purchased, or to save themselves money by identifying abnormal use patterns that suggest fraud, or just to track money, like in your monthly statements. Let's take a look at a quick and simplified use of analytics. I typically use my credit card at my local supermarket and gas station. If suddenly there was a charge at a pawn shop in Las Vegas, that might appear fraudulent. But if there was a prior charge for a plane ticket to Las Vegas, then it probably is legitimate. But the systems have to be smart enough to draw the right connections and to see the right patterns. In the financial world, it may be a little bit easier because the data lines up. It is always lined up. This is a screenshot of VisiCalc. I had it running on my Apple II in 1983. It doesn't look that much different than the spreadsheets of today, right? Kind of looks like your bank statements, right? Why? Because they're accountants. They like adding columns of numbers. The patterns here are all in the columns. By the way, the ability to cognitively see patterns is what separates us from the insects. It's also central to things like Watson. The hard part is wrapping your head around all the different types of data that might have patterns hidden within it. For example, row data, which is what finance uses, versus unstructured data, which doesn't line up neatly in rows. Let's go back to what the medical record looked like back in 1995. When I started the hospital, this was the medical record, the library. You could check out the books, you could check out the records. We didn't use the Dewey Decimal System. We had a color-coded terminal digit order sort method to find the record, but the record itself, well, it read kind of like a book. Lots of it was handwritten. What few diagnostic devices we had printed out their findings on thermopaper, which was then cut into 6-inch lengths and hand-taped onto larger pieces of paper for inclusion in the record. The key point being that the data was static. Once it was placed in the patient's folder, that piece of the puzzle was never changed. You just added new pages to the end. This is a typical report, a single-page radiology report. Sure, we've got columns, just like Wall Street. Well, sort of. The area at the top is in columns, so the machine can easily read and understand it and decide where to put it. But below, the unstructured part, well, that's dark data. The machine can't read it, and that's where the real story resides. That's where the diagnosis, the treatment, the research data to improve future patient results, that's where it resides. But we're getting better at cognitively reading this treasure trove. And there's going to be a talk by that little gentleman who is rewriting it right now, all about that in just a few minutes. But we know that the text is hard to read. But what about pictures? You think it's hard to teach a machine to see a broken bone? A lot harder than determining if my pawn shop purchases were legit? You bet. A year ago, I missed one step walking down into my cellar, and I snapped my fibula. That's the long bone over there on the right. And there's the fracture. So you can see And yes, it was my ambulance and my firemen that had to come and haul me up out of the basement. It was very embarrassing. I can teach you how to find a fraction in an x-ray. The trick is you follow the edges. Where they don't line up, it's the fraction. Even my kids were able to find it. But a machine, well, we're not there yet. We're just starting to teach them how to see. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What if we were to take this x-ray and make it three-dimensional so that the doctor could visualize the fraction before he opened me up? Well, we're doing that at Sloan Kettering today. The doctors still find that the two-dimensional slices are more useful diagnostically. But when it comes to surgery, the three-dimensional view makes a big difference. Not necessarily for something as mundane as my leg, but certainly for tumor surgeries. Unlike a static paper-based record, these digital records can be dynamic. Not that the data itself changes, but there is sufficient data to show change. In the case of the 3D surgical view, it's dynamic over space. So the doctor can rotate the image as they see fit in order to plan the surgery. But digital data can also be dynamic over time. Like this echocardiogram, which is looping through one beat of the heart. Even text can be dynamic over time. So if we go back to the text-based radiology report and pretend that it's a daily progress note, we can think of it kind of like a CAT scan, which is a slice through your body. Well, a progress note is also a slice. It's a text-based slice of your progress. And if we do one every day, we end up with a history of your progress over time. Even though each day's progress may have been written by a different clinician, and therefore may be worded differently, we can hand them to a human doctor who will have no trouble at all following that patient's progress over time. The cognitive trick is getting Watson to be able to do the same, and then suggest a course of action for the next portion of the patient's care. Just like an x-ray that can see inside of a leg, we're teaching machines to see inside the dark, unstructured data that encompasses the medical record. These are thrilling times to be in healthcare computing. There are also challenges, and they never came up with paper. There are viewer compatibility issues that cause unending headaches. The storage needs of these new diagnostic tools are just enormous. As the storage goes up, so does the need to increase the bandwidth so that the response times remain acceptable. And who today has a network that is 100% within their firewall? None of us. We all rely on connections to remote users, and the bandwidth of those external networks may be difficult for you to control. Unlike other industries, there's no statute of limitations or 7-year rule at Sloan Kettering. We keep everything. That leads to several issues. For example, has anyone ever done a storage migration? Okay. They're fun, right? That's what happens when your storage media ages out faster than your data. And since our data never ages out, the size just keeps growing. 20 years ago, the entire contents of our data center was 250 megabytes. In fact, they had a party when they reached 250 megabytes. Today, we are at 30 petabytes of data, and the storage team doesn't have time to celebrate. That growth rate would be the equivalent of taking this Twinkie and growing it until one end was here in New York and the other end was in Tokyo. That's a big Twinkie. By the way, Twinkies will go out to whoever asks the questions at the end of the talk. We're going to put this right.